The afternoon sun hung low over the broken colony, a dull red coin in a pale sky. Heat shook over the road like a thin veil. Dust lay on everything. On the rusted fences, on the dented water tanks, on the old cargo crates that people had turned into homes. It even lay on the small metal sign at the gate that once read, "Welcome to Settlement 11." Now the welcome was scratched away, and only the word 11 remained like a warning. A small human boy named Eli walked with his mother along the market street. He was 8 years old, light on his feet, with quick eyes and a careful smile. In his right hand he carried his favorite toy, a small metal ship painted blue with one wing slightly bent. He had fixed it many times using glue and tape. He liked the way the paint had chipped in patterns that looked like tiny stars. His mother, Mara, moved from stall to stall, trading ration tokens for bread, filters, and a bag of dried fruit. She kept glancing at the soldiers posted on the rooftops. Tension had grown in the colony over the last month. There were whispers about raids and missing patrols, about old enemies stirring again. People talked with tight voices and lowered eyes. No one laughed for long. Eli did not think about raids. He watched the small things. He watched a little lizard crawl up a barrel and disappear under a flap of canvas. He watched a broken drone blink in and out with a dying blue light. And he watched a child sitting alone on the curb across the street. She was not human. Her skin held a faint gray-blue tint, and she had soft lines across her cheeks like delicate ink. Her hair was dark and braided with thin threads of silver. Her ears were small and pointed. Her clothes were worn but clean, cut in a style Eli had seen in old pictures, formal, tidy, ancient. She looked no older than 9 or 10. She held a small crystal pendant, cracked down the center, and she turned it in her hands like a habit she could not stop. No one sat near her. People passed by her like wind around a stone. Eli slowed. He stood on the corner and watched. The alien girl sat very still as if moving would break her. Her eyes were large and bright, but there was a tiredness in them that did not belong to a child. Every few minutes she looked toward the gate as if she was waiting for someone who would never come. When someone brushed close, she flinched and then went still again. "Eli," Mara said from behind him. "Stay close." He nodded and stepped back to her side, but his head turned toward the girl anyway. "Who is she?" he asked. "I don't know," his mother said. "Keep your voice down." "She looks lonely." Mara followed his gaze for 1 second. Something in her face went tight, then soft. "Some families lost their homes last winter," she said. "Some lost more." "Don't stare." Eli tried not to, but the girl felt like a point of gravity. He wanted to know what her voice sounded like. He wanted to know what story lived behind that cracked pendant. He wanted to do something small and right, something that would make the heavy air feel lighter. They reached the water pump. People were lined up, pushing empty canisters with tired hands. A soldier stood near the valve and watched the crowd. The sky was the color of hot metal. The dust felt like chalk on the tongue. Mara filled a canister and set it down with a sigh. "One more," she said. Eli turned his toy ship in his palms. He ran his thumb along the bent wing. He had flown this ship across every room of his home. He had driven it over tables and under chairs, through blankets and over pillows. He had slept with it in his hand, dreaming that it hummed. He loved this toy. But the alien girl's hands were empty, except for the broken pendant. He looked up at his mother. "Can I go say hi?" he asked. Mara frowned, thinking. "Stay where I can see you," she said at last. "Be gentle, and come back the moment I call." Eli nodded. He took a careful breath and crossed the street. As he got closer, he noticed new details. The girl's boots were scuffed in the same spot on both feet. She had a tiny scar on her chin, a neat line like a dash. The threads woven into her hair had symbols on them, sharp lines and curves like a simple song written in metal. She smelled faintly of herbs, of something clean and cool. She did not look up until his shadow fell across her boots. Then she lifted her head and her eyes met his. They were gray at first glance. Then they flashed with a pale inner light like moonlight on a river. "Hi," Eli said, and his voice broke softly on the word. The girl blinked and held the pendant tighter. "Hello," she said. Her voice was quiet and careful. The word sounded formal, like a greeting taught long ago. "I'm Eli," he said. "What's your name?" She looked at the ground, then at him again. "Raya," she said. She pronounced it like two short notes, Rhea. That's pretty, he said. Are you okay? Rhea opened her mouth, then closed it. Her fingers tapped the cracked crystal. I am waiting, she said. Each word felt chosen. I am trying to be brave. For who? Eli asked. Rhea's gaze slid toward the gate again. The sun cut a bright line along her cheek. For my people, she said. For my mother. For the promise. Eli did not understand, but he understood the ache in her voice. He looked at the toy in his hands. The blue paint was warm from the sun. He made a small decision. It was not heavy. It felt like opening a window. He held out the ship. Do you want to hold it? He asked. Rhea stared at the toy. She did not move. Why? She asked. Because it's good, he said simply. Because it helps me when I feel sad. It's fast. It can fly over everything. Rhea's throat moved. It is yours. Yeah, Eli said. But it can be yours now. He placed the ship in her hands. The change was instant and small, but real. Rhea's pupils widened. A faint shimmer crossed her eyes like a veil of light. The pendant in her hand gave a tiny pulse like a heartbeat in crystal. She sucked in a breath and held very still, as if a cord inside her had been plucked. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice shook. Thank you, Eli smiled. You're welcome. Rhea looked down at the ship. She turned it slightly, testing the weight. She lifted it and made a small circle in the air, shy at first, then a little bigger. The bent wing caught the sun and threw a bright spot across the dusty road. For the first time since he'd seen her, Eli heard a sound like a laugh, tiny and soft. It was not a full laugh, but it was the start of one. Do you like it? He asked. Yes, she said. I like it very much. Then it's yours, he said again. Really? Her eyes flicked up fast. You are certain? Yeah, he shrugged. I have my mom. I have our place. You looked like you needed it more. Rhea stared at him for a long moment. Then she placed the broken pendant in her lap carefully, as if setting down a fragile truth. She closed both hands around the blue ship and bowed her head. The light in her eyes deepened, steady and clear. Something unseen moved in the air. Even Eli felt it. A faint pressure, a gentle warmth like stepping into sunlight after shade. Rhea spoke a few words in her own language, quiet and precise, the syllables shaped like a promise. Eli did not know the meaning, but he felt the weight of it, the kindness of it. On a distant ridge outside the colony, an old tower woke. It had been dead for years, a skeleton of metal and stone. Now with a cough and a hiss, faint lights traced up its spine. Dust fell in soft curtains from its joints. A dish slowly turned and found the sky. Deep under the ridge, a chamber opened like an eye. A signal climbed into the clouds, thin and bright, and leapt from point to point across forgotten relays. The message was simple. It carried no words, only a pattern, a recognition, a bond, a restored name. Back on the street, Eli sat down on the curb beside Rhea. He did not mind the dust. He pointed at the ship's bent wing. I tried to fix that, he said. It still flies, though. You just have to tilt like this. He moved his hand to show the angle. Rhea copied him. The ship dipped and rose, a small blue bird in her fingers. I see, she said, and her mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. Your craft is brave. It's a toy, Eli said, grinning. Brave toy, she insisted, almost teasing, and Eli's grin widened because he could hear a tiny thread of play in her tone. Across the street, Mara watched them with a hand over her mouth. Her eyes were wet, though she did not know why. She saw her son's small back in the alien girl's careful hands and felt both fear and relief pressing against each other. She had warned Eli so often to be cautious, to keep steps small and eyes open. But some steps must be taken. Some kindnesses must be given, or the world bends into a smaller shape and never unbends. A soldier on the roof lowered his rifle a little. He was not supposed to. He did it anyway. Rhea lifted the ship higher and drew a long, slow loop like a comet around a quiet moon. The pendant on her lap glowed one steady line through its crack, as if some hidden circuit had connected again. She glanced at it, then at Eli, and her face changed. Hope flashed across it, bright and fragile, like a bird taking first flight. Eli, she said, testing the name. May I ask you a question? Sure. Why did you come to me? Eli thought for a second. He wanted to give a big answer, something wise. But the true answer was small and clear. Because you looked sad, he said. Because I know what sad feels like. It's heavy. I can't fix the whole thing. But I can share my ship. Raya breathed out slowly. In my people, she said, choosing each word. When one gives a personal object freely from a place of care, we say it is a bond gift. It is a very old practice. It means I will stand beside you. Oh, Eli said, surprised. I didn't know. I just wanted you to have something good. Morning broke quiet over Settlement 11. A pale mist crawled low over the broken roads, wrapping the metal fences in the silent rooftops. The colony always started slow, with engines coughing awake, vendors opening tarp stalls, and soldiers pacing their watchtowers. But today something in the air felt heavy, like the pause before thunder. Eli woke early. He pressed his face against the cracked window of his family's quarters. Outside, the horizon glowed red, too bright for dawn. He could hear a low hum, deep and distant, like the sky was breathing. Mom, he whispered. Something's coming. His mother, Mara, stirred from her cot. It's just the wind, she mumbled, but even as she said it, her eyes opened wider. The hum grew louder, trembling through the walls. Loose dust fell from the ceiling. The radio on the table cracked to life. All defense units report to the perimeter. Unidentified fleet approaching. Repeat, unidentified fleet approaching from orbit. Mara froze. Get your shoes, Eli, now. Eli pulled them on, his small hands shaking. The noise outside swelled, a roar that rolled across the desert and made every metal sheet shiver. Then, through the thin walls, they heard it, the sound of hundreds of engines descending. By the time they reached the street, the colony was chaos. Soldiers shouted orders. People ran for shelter. Alarms wailed. And above it all, the sky darkened with massive ships, painted in silver and blood-red patterns. Eli stared upward, eyes wide. Mom, they look like... He stopped. He remembered the girl, Raya. Mara grabbed his hand. Stay close. Don't talk to anyone. But Eli's gaze stayed fixed on the sky. The ships weren't attacking. They hung there silent, their engines humming like giants breathing. Dust spiraled beneath them. Then slowly hatches opened. The colony soldiers lifted their rifles, and 500 Tharkai warriors dropped from the ships. They landed outside the colony gates, metal armor glowing faintly in the red sun. Their eyes burned gold. Each carried a spear or a blade that shimmered with inner light. The ground trembled under their boots. For a moment the world held its breath. Then all 500 warriors knelt, every weapon in the colony lowered an inch, uncertain. The air shimmered with heat and power. From the largest ship descended a single figure, taller than the rest, wrapped in silver battlecloth, his face marked with old scars. His voice carried across the field like thunder. We are the Tharkai Vanguard. We answer the call of the air. The human commander, Captain Hale, stepped forward, his armor dusty and worn. State your purpose. You've entered human territory without clearance. What do you want here? The Tharkai leader raised his head, golden eyes narrowing. We come for the one who offered the bond gift, the one who touched our bloodline. Murmurs spread through the human ranks. Bond gift? Someone whispered. What's that mean? Eli felt his throat tighten. He stepped closer to his mother. He knew exactly what they meant. Before anyone could speak again, the colony gate creaked open. Everyone turned. There, small and fragile, stood Raya. Her blue-gray skin glowed faintly under the morning light. She still clutched the little blue ship Eli had given her. The broken crystal pendant at her neck now pulsed with soft white light. When the warriors saw her, they struck their weapons to the ground in unison. The sound rolled like thunder. Dust jumped from the earth. Princess Raya of the Tharkai bloodline, the leader said, bowing his head low. Your call has been heard across the stars. Your protector has been found. Raya blinked, tears forming in her eyes. Protector? She whispered. Her gaze turned toward Eli. Mara's breath caught. Eli, don't... But Eli had already stepped forward. His small boots crunched on the dry soil. He stood beside Raya, clutching her hand. I didn't mean to call anyone, he said softly. I just wanted to help her. The tall warrior turned his gaze on the boy. His eyes glowed brighter. You are the human child? Eli nodded. I just gave her my toy. A low rumble went through the warriors like a growl shared by hundreds. The leader bowed his head again. Then you have performed the bond offering. To give without desire to comfort the air. You are bound to the Tharkai. Your safety is our command. Captain Hale stepped forward again, his weapon shaking. We didn't authorize any bond. You have no right. The warrior raised a hand and Hale's voice faltered. We do not take rights, the warrior said. We swear oaths. This boy's act carries ancient power. The call of the bond is older than your colonies, older than our wars. The radio crackled with urgent voices. Do we open fire, Captain? Hale looked around at his people. Farmers, medics, scared families, and at the 500 warriors kneeling in perfect silence. Each one was big enough to crush a man's armor with bare hands. The air thrummed with their presence. He lowered his weapon. Stand down, he ordered quietly. Mara grabbed Eli's shoulder. Eli, come back here. But Raya spoke first, voice trembling but steady. Please do not fear. My people will not harm you. The bond was made in kindness. They come only to protect. The leader nodded. The air speaks true. The Tharkai shed blood only when honor demands it, a soldier muttered. 500 armed aliens and we're supposed to relax? The warrior's golden eyes shifted toward him. You misunderstand. We are not armed. We are sworn. Then, from the sky, a huge holographic image shimmered to life. The face of an older Tharkai woman, proud and graceful, her eyes silver like molten stars. Children of two worlds, she said, her voice echoing across the desert, calm but immense. I am Matriarch Serath, mother of the lost heir. Long have we searched for her light. Today we find not only her, but a human child who carried compassion where empires carried war. Her gaze turned toward Eli. Human boy, you do not understand what you have done. In giving your toy, you restored a sacred bond, a bridge between species. The Tharkai owe you a life debt that will not be broken. Eli swallowed hard. I didn't mean to start anything, he said softly. I just wanted her to smile. The matriarch smiled faintly. Then you have done more than any war hero in 1,000 years, the humans whispered among themselves. Some cried, some prayed, some simply stared in awe. The matriarch's tone hardened. Let none harm the boy or his kin. The Tharkai fleet will defend this colony as if it were our own. You may distrust us, but understand. The bond cannot be undone. With that, the hologram vanished. Silence fell again. Then Raya turned to Eli. Her hand trembled as she reached for him. You saved me, she whispered. And you saved them too. I just gave you a toy, he said again, embarrassed. Raya smiled, tears in her eyes. And I gave you a world. Behind her, the warriors began to rise. Their armor glinted red and silver in the rising sun. The leader slammed his spear to the ground one last time. The heir and her protector stand under our guard. Any who threaten them shall face the Tharkai vow. At the colony walls, human soldiers lowered their guns fully. The hum of engines faded. The dust settled. Captain Hale turned to Mara. Your boy just ended a war before it began, he said quietly. Mara stared at Eli, her heart pounding. She didn't know whether to cry or to hold him tight forever. That night, the colony didn't sleep. Warriors stood watch in silence. Families whispered from windows. And in the middle of the compound, under the flickering lamplight, a small human boy and a young alien girl sat side by side. Eli showed Raya how to fold paper into shapes. She laughed, a sound pure and new. Around them, the massive Tharkai stood like statues, their eyes soft as they listened. For the first time in many years, the stars over Settlement 11 shone bright and steady, and high above, unseen by all, a signal went back to the Tharkai homeworld, a single message in ancient code. The air is safe. The bond lives. The human is under our protection. The next day, the humans would wake to find alien warriors rebuilding their walls, repairing their machines, and guarding their borders. But for now, in that quiet night, only one truth mattered. One small act of kindness had awakened a power large enough to change two worlds forever. The morning after the arrival of the Tharkai fleet, Settlement 11 no longer felt like the same place. The air buzzed with energy. Huge alien ships hovered above the red plains, their shadows moving slowly across the colony. Warriors patrolled the borders, silent, alert, and massive. Where there had once been fear, now there was awe. Eli walked through the market street, holding his mother's hand. Soldiers nodded to him, whispering, "That's the boy." Children peeked out from behind stalls, pointing and smiling shyly. He didn't understand why everyone looked at him that way. He hadn't done anything special, at least not in his own eyes. Beside him, Raya walked with calm steps. her silver-threaded braids catching the morning light. She still carried the small blue ship Eli had given her. She kept it close, tied to her wrist with a strip of her own sash. Wherever she went, warriors bowed slightly as she passed. The colony commander, Captain Hale, was still uneasy. He watched from the command tower, speaking into his headset. "Keep the perimeter clear. I don't want anyone provoking them." His deputy frowned. "They're not hostile, sir. They've been repairing our broken drones and reinforcing our walls." "I know," Hale said. "That's what worries me. Nobody helps for free." But down below, Eli and Raya didn't think about politics or strategy. They were sitting under the old shade dome where the water pump stood. Around them, curious kids gathered, both human and alien. For the first time, laughter mixed between species. Eli held a piece of scrap metal shaped like a wing. "See this?" he said proudly. "I'm going to fix the toy's wing today." Raya tilted her head. "It does not need fixing," she said softly. "It already carries our bond. Broken things can still fly." Eli grinned. "Still, it'll look cooler when it's perfect again." She smiled, a small, rare smile that made her eyes glow faintly silver. "Then let us make it perfect together." They bent over the small toy ship, surrounded by the noise of life returning to the colony. The smell of bread baking drifted from the stalls. The hum of alien machinery echoed from the walls where the Tharkai worked. It was a strange peace, an impossible one, but peace never stays quiet for long. That evening, clouds gathered fast, rolling black over the sky. The red light dimmed. From the north ridge came a low thunder, but it was not from the storm. It was from engines. The Tharkai leader, Commander Varric, looked up sharply. His voice turned sharp. "All warriors, defensive formation. Human radar is blind to this approach." The alarm blared across the colony once more. People ran for shelters. The calm of the day shattered into panic. Captain Hale raced to the control tower. "What's happening?" Varric's holographic display appeared beside him. Red dots blinked rapidly across the northern sky. "Pirate ships. Raiders who once hunted our kind. They have followed our signal here. They seek the air, and your weapons will not stop them." Hale clenched his fists. "Then we fight together." Varric looked at him for a long moment and nodded. "Then we fight together." Outside, lightning split the sky. Raya stood near the gate, her pendant glowing bright. Eli ran up to her. "Raya, you need to hide. Mom says—" "I cannot," she said firmly. "They came for me." Eli shook his head. "Then I'm not leaving you." Before she could protest, a blast of light tore through the horizon. Enemy ships, dark, spiked, roaring with plasma fire, descended through the storm clouds. Their weapons hit the ground outside the colony, shaking the towers. The Tharkai warriors roared as one. "For the air!" They charged. Energy shields flared to life, glowing red and gold. Spears of plasma spun and struck through the rain. The ground shook with every step of their march. Captain Hale and his soldiers joined them, firing their railguns and rockets. Humans and Tharkai fought side by side, two species that had once feared each other now standing as one line. Eli watched from behind the barricade, clutching the broken wing of the toy. His mother tried to pull him away, but he kept watching Raya. She was standing still, her eyes bright like burning stars, her pendant pulsing with power. "Raya!" he shouted. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. She lifted the pendant, closed her eyes, and whispered in her language. The words came soft and steady, but the power that followed made the ground hum. The pendant burst into a column of light that shot into the sky. Every Tharkai warrior froze for a heartbeat, and then they shouted as one. Their armor flared, their weapons glowed brighter, their movements faster. The bond between air and army had awakened. Her power. Varric breathed, watching from the front line. "The air has claimed her blood right." The pirates roared back, releasing swarms of drones and burning flares. The air turned red with smoke and fire. A missile streaked toward the colony wall. Eli screamed, "Raya!" Without thinking, she ran forward and lifted her hands. The light from her pendant spread like a shield, wide and bright. The missile hit and vanished into the glow. When it faded, she was on her knees, trembling but alive. Eli ran to her, ignoring his mother's cry. He caught her shoulders. "Don't do that again." She looked at him weakly. "The bond protects. It listens to both of us now. What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "You gave it life when you gave me your toy. The bond is shared. Your heart called them my power." shields them. Together we hold both worlds. Before Eli could speak, another blast shook the ground. Varek's voice thundered from the front lines. Push them back. Human and alien firepower merged in a storm of light. The sky above the colony turned into a battlefield of colors. Red plasma, blue rockets, and the silver trails of Tharkai ships diving through the smoke. Raya lifted her pendant again, whispering a command. The Tharkai fleet responded instantly. Dozens of their ships broke formation, circling above the enemy, releasing beams of white fire that cut through the storm clouds. The pirates began to retreat. Their engines flared and turned skyward. One by one, their ships vanished into the darkness. When the last explosion faded, silence fell. Rain began to fall gently over the battlefield, washing away the dust and ash. The Tharkai warriors stood tall, their armor cracked but their eyes still glowing. Human soldiers cheered weakly, exhausted but alive. Captain Hale lowered his weapon and looked at Varek. You saved us. Varek shook his head. No, he saved us. He looked toward Eli, who stood beside Raya, soaked, muddy but unbroken. The child who gave kindness instead of fear. Mara rushed to her son, hugging him tight. Never scare me like that again, she whispered. Eli hugged her back, smiling through tears. We did it, Mom, we really did. That night the fires were put out and the colony gathered under the open sky. Humans and Tharkai sat together around makeshift lights. The air smelled of rain and metal. Raya stood before the crowd, her pendant glowing softly. Commander Varek and Captain Hale stood beside her. She spoke in simple words, her voice steady. Today we fought together. You call us aliens, but we are not so different. We both love. We both protect. And we both can change. The humans listened quietly. Raya turned to Eli and smiled. This boy reminded us that even in war, kindness can awaken warriors. We will stay, not as conquerors but as friends. The Tharkai warriors lifted their weapons to the sky in salute. The sound rolled like thunder again, but this time it was not fearsome. It was proud. Captain Hale stepped forward and extended his hand to Varek. Then let's build this place together. The alien commander took it firmly. Together. The night stretched long and bright. Children laughed. Soldiers shared food. The blue ship sat between Eli and Raya, its bent wing now glowing faintly, repaired with alien metal. Eli looked up at the stars. Do you think they'll come back? He asked. Raya shook her head. Not as enemies. The bond has spoken. The stars remember. Above them, hundreds of Tharkai ships formed into a shield pattern across the sky. From below, it looked like a new constellation, one shaped like a tiny ship with broken wings. People would later call it the Kindness Star. As the colony lights dimmed, Raya leaned her head gently on Eli's shoulder. Thank you for giving me your toy, she whispered. He smiled. Thank you for giving me a friend. The wind moved softly over the sand. The warriors stood silent guard. And high above, in the endless dark, two worlds, once strangers, now shared one promise. The bond will never fade.